The year was 1954. A year of secrets. A year of shadows. The sun was beating down on the tarmac at Tokyo's Haneda Airport. It was a typical humid July afternoon. Travelers were moving like ghosts through the terminals. Business as usual. But for the men working the customs desk, business was about to become a nightmare. Among the crowd stood a man. He looked ordinary, perhaps too ordinary. He wore a crisp wool suit. He carried a leather briefcase. He looked like any other executive traveling for a high-stakes meeting. He stepped up to the counter. His expression was calm, confident. He handed over his passport. The officer opened the small book, and the world stopped turning. The document was real. The leather was authentic. The stamps were official. But the country did not exist. It was called Taured. The officer looked up, squinting. "Sir, where is this from?" The man pointed to a map. He pointed to the border of France and Spain. He looked confused, almost insulted. "It has been there for 1,000 years, he said. His voice was deep, steady, but there was an edge to it, a hint of trapped energy. The officers called for backup. They brought in the high-ranking officials. They sat him in a small windowless room. The air was thick with the smell of cheap tobacco and stale coffee. They showed him a map of the world, a standard 1954 map. "Show us again," they demanded. The man's finger hovered over the area where Andorra sits today, but his face turned as white as a sheet. He started to tremble. "Where is it?" he whispered. "Where is Taured? Why does this map say Andorra?" He wasn't lying. You could see it in his eyes. The pure terror of a man who realized his entire reality had been wiped away. He reached into his pockets. He pulled out currency from a dozen different countries. He had a checkbook from a bank that didn't exist. He had a driver's license for roads that weren't on any map. He was a ghost, walking among the living. The officials didn't know what to do. Was he a spy? A madman? Or something much, much worse? They decided to detain him. They took him to a high-rise hotel nearby. They put him in a room on the 10th floor. No balcony, no ledges, just a sheer drop to the concrete below. 2 armed guards stood outside his door. Their eyes never left the wood. They didn't hear a sound. No footsteps. No sliding glass. Nothing but the hum of the air conditioner. But when the sun began to rise, when the clock struck 8, they opened the door. The bed was made. The briefcase was gone. The man was vanished. They checked the locks. They were still bolted from the inside. They checked the window. It was sealed shut. Shul stories up. And he was gone. Like he never stepped off that plane. Like he never breathed our air. But here is the part that keeps me awake at night. The part they don't want you to know. When the police went back to the airport, back to the evidence locker where they kept his passport, they found something even more terrifying. The passport was gone. The checks were gone. Every single piece of evidence that this man ever existed had dissolved into thin air. He didn't just escape. He was deleted. Was he a traveler from another dimension? Did he slip through a crack in time? Or are we the ones living in the wrong world? Think about it. You're walking down the street. You turn a corner. And suddenly, the buildings are different. The flags are wrong. Your home is gone. This man lived that nightmare. And the silence he left behind is louder than any scream. He was the man from nowhere. The man from Taured. And he might still be out there, wandering between the layers of reality, looking for a home that no longer exists. But wait, it gets deeper, much deeper. Because while the man was gone, he left one thing behind. Something the guards found on the floor of that hotel room. Something that shouldn't have been there. Small. Gold. Coin. They picked it up. It felt heavy. Cold. It had the face of a king no one recognized. And a date that hadn't happened yet. How does a man from 1954 carry a coin from the future? How does a country vanish from the map in a single afternoon? The investigation went cold. The files were stamped classified. The guards were sworn to silence. But secrets have a way of leaking out. They bleed through the cracks, just like the man himself. Imagine being in his shoes. You land at the airport. You expect to see your family. You expect to go to your office instead. You are a prisoner of a world that calls you ALIAR. You look at the map, and your heart stops. Your history, your culture, your entire life. This is just a blank space. Is it possible? Could there be a doorway? A glitch in the system? Scientists call it the multiverse. Philosophers call it a dream. But for the man in the wool suit, it was a cold, hard reality. The Tokyo police searched every inch of that city. They checked every hospital, every morgue, every train station. They found nothing. No! One saw a man in a wool suit walking the streets of Shinjuku. No one saw a stranger asking for directions to a ghost country. He came from the void, and he returned to the void. But some say, on very quiet nights, near the old terminal at Haneda, you can still hear him, a faint voice, speaking a language that sounds like French but isn't, asking for a taxi to Taured. He is still searching, still waiting, still trapped in the wrong version of the world. And the scariest part, it could happen to you. One wrong turn, one mistyped coordinate in the universe, and you could be the next person standing at a counter, holding a passport for a place that doesn't exist. What would you do? Who would you call? When your entire world is just a lie. The case of the man from Taured remains the greatest mystery of the 20th century. A glitch, a ghost, a warning. He was here, and then he was never here. Whatever he was, he left us with a question that haunts every shadow of our existence. Are we alone in this reality, or are we just one mistake away from vanishing? The file is closed. The room is empty, but the mystery is just beginning. Stay tuned, because what we found in the archives, what we uncovered about the year 1954, will change everything you think you know about the truth. The man was gone, but he wasn't the only one. There were others, shadowed figures, waiting in the wings of history, and their story is about to be told. The disappearance of the man from Taured was only the beginning. A single thread pulled from a tapestry that was about to unravel. The Tokyo police didn't just stop at the hotel room. They couldn't. How do you explain a man vanishing from a locked room on the 10th floor? You don't. You hide it. But one young detective, a man named Saito, couldn't let it go. He went back to the airport archives. He spent nights in the basement, surrounded by the smell of rotting paper and dust. And that's when he found the discrepancies. The flight logs for that day, July 1954. They showed the plane landing. They showed the passenger count. But when Saito looked at the manifest, the names didn't match. There was an extra seat, a seat that shouldn't have been occupied. Seat Sibidan. According to the official record, seat 4B was empty. But the flight attendants, they remembered him. They remembered serving him a meal. They remembered his polite, French-accented English. One of them even remembered the book he was reading, a leather-bound volume with gold lettering. The title, A History of the Great War of 1912. The voice you selected does not support this language. Please click the upper right corner to switch to another voice. There was no Great War in 1912. Saito felt a chill run down his spine. Cold, metallic fear. He wasn't just looking for a missing person. He was looking for a missing history. He tracked down the hotel staff, the maids who cleaned the room after the man vanished. Most of them were too scared to talk. They whispered about demons and ghosts. But one woman, an elderly cleaner, grabbed Sato's arm. Her hand was shaking. The room wasn't just empty, she whispered. It was wrong. She explained that when she entered room 1502, the air felt heavy, like a storm was about to break, but never did. The clock on the wall had stopped at exactly 4:14. And the mirror, the large vanity mirror over the desk, it was cracked. Not a simple break, but a spiderweb of fractures radiating from the center. And in the very middle of the crack, there was a smudge, a fingerprint, burnt into the glass. Saito took a sample of the residue. He sent it to the lab. The results came back 48 hours later, and they made nitrogen monoxide sense. The residue wasn't human oils or sweat. It was a compound that didn't exist in nature. It was radioactive, but in a way that didn't emit heat. It emitted cold, a cold radioactivity, something that defied every law of physics known to man. The detective realized he was being watched. Shadowy figures in long coats began appearing outside his apartment. Black cars with no license plates followed him through the rain-soaked streets of Tokyo. He was getting too close to the Taured. He went back to the airport one last time, to the terminal where the man first appeared. He stood at the exact spot where the man from Taured had handed over his passport. He closed his eyes. He tried to feel the air, and that's when he heard it. A low hum, a vibration in the floorboards, like a giant machine working deep underground. He looked down and saw a thin, shimmering line on the floor. It was barely visible, like a strand of silk caught in the light. It led from the customs desk, across the lobby, and straight through a solid concrete wall. A trail, a glitch in the matrix, a path to somewhere else. Saito followed it. He pushed through the crowds, ignoring the stares of the travelers. He reached the wall. He reached out his hand, and his fingers didn't hit stone. They sank into the surface, like it was made of water. The wall was an illusion. Before he could step through, a hand grabbed his shoulder hard. He spun around, expecting to see the secret police. But it was no one he recognized. It was a man, wearing a wool suit, carrying a leather briefcase. The witnesses were relocated. The records were purged. But the humming at the airport, it never stopped. Even today, if you stand at Terminal 1, if you listen very closely during the quiet hours between flights, you can hear it. The sound of a door that won't stay closed. The sound of a world that is leaking. We think we are safe. We think the walls of our reality are solid, but they are as thin as paper, and something is poking holes in them. The man from Taured was the first, but he won't be the last. The question isn't where he went. The question is, who is coming through next? Watch the shadows, listen to the hum, and never, ever look too closely at the maps. Because the world, might just be a sham. And Taured is closer than you think. The investigation was no longer about a missing man. It was about a leak in the universe that the authorities were desperate to plug. By the winter of 1954, a secret facility was established beneath the streets of Shinjuku. They called it Project Mirror. Their mission? To find the doorway the man from Taured had walked through. They brought in physicists, occultists, and men who dealt in the unthinkable. They realized that Taured wasn't just a place. It was a version of us. A version where history took a different path. A version where the Great War never ended. And the technology grew dark, cold, hungry. The lead scientist, a man named Dr. Arasaka, became obsessed. He didn't just want to study the gap. He wanted to bridge it. He built a machine, a massive ring of copper and lead, powered by the same cold radioactivity found in the hotel room. On the night of December 12th, they turned it on. The air in the lab turned to ice. The lights flickered, then died. But the machine started to glow, not with light, but with a shadow so deep it looked like a hole in reality. "I see it," Arasaka whispered. His voice was hollow, like he was speaking from the bottom of a well. "The spires, the black towers of Taured, they are beautiful." But then the screaming started. It wasn't Arasaka. It was coming from the other side. The shadow didn't just stay in the ring. It began to bleed. It crawled across the floor like a liquid, touching the boots of the technicians. And everywhere it touched, things changed. A metal chair turned into glass. A wooden desk began to bleed real blood. The laws of our world were melting, dissolving into the chaos of a different dimension. "Shut it down," someone yelled, but the switches were fused. The reality was locking. And then, out of the shadow, a hand reached out. It wasn't the man in the wool suit. It was something else. Long, gray, with fingers that had too many joints. It gripped the edge of the copper ring, and the metal cracked under its strength. Something was coming through. Something that didn't belong in a world of sunlight and logic. Arasaka didn't run. He walked toward it. His eyes were wide. His mind already shattered. He reached out his hand, and the thing from Taured took it. In a flash of cold blue light, the lab exploded. When the military arrived an hour later, there was nothing left. No machine. No scientists. No Arasaka. Just a crater of frozen concrete. And a single, terrifying message scrawled on the wall in charcoal. The doors open. The government buried the facility. They poured tons of lead and salt into the hole, hoping to seal the infection. They told the public it was a gas leak, a tragic accident. But you can't seal a ghost. Since that night, reports of the man who doesn't exist have tripled, not just in Tokyo, but in London, New York, Paris. People appearing in airports with passports from countries like Gladsheim, Iberia, and New Lemuria. They all have the same look in their eyes, the look of someone who has seen the end of the world, and they all disappear within 24 hours. We are being invaded, but not by ships or soldiers. We are being invaded by mistakes, by people who fell through the cracks, and the things that are following them through. Think about the last time you felt a sudden chill in a crowded room, or the time you saw a stranger who looked exactly like you, but his clothes were from a different era. That wasn't your imagination. That was a collision. The man from Taured was just the scout. He was the one who proved the wall could be broken. And now, the wall is like a sieve. The secret archives suggest that by the year 2026, the two worlds will fully overlap. The maps will change. The history books will rewrite themselves, and you will wake up in a city you don't recognize. You will reach for your ID, and it will be for a country no one has ever heard of. And the guards at the gate? They won't let you in. You are the one who doesn't exist. The countdown has begun. The hum at the airport is getting louder. The shadows are getting thicker. And at Arasaka, some say he is still there, standing on the other side of the mirror, holding the hand of the thing that took him, waiting for the moment to step back through and finish what he started. Are you ready to lose your world? Are you ready to become a ghost? Because the man from Taured is coming back. And this time, he isn't alone. The year is 2026, and the hum is no longer a whisper. It is a roar. The gold coin, the one Detective Saito clutched before he vanished, was never lost. It ended up in a private collection, a vault owned by a man who spent billions to find the truth. And in the winter of last year, the coin began to change. The face of the unknown king started to weep. A black, oily substance leaked from the metal, and the date on the back started counting down. Every hour, every minute, the numbers shifted. Became 1991, then 1980, then 2000, until it stopped. It stopped on today's date. The countdown is over. Across the globe, the reports are flooding in. People are waking up in houses they don't recognize, speaking languages that have no name. In Tokyo, the sky turned a bruised purple for 3 minutes, and the Haneda Airport Terminal, the spot where it all began, simply ceased to exist. It didn't explode. It didn't burn. It became a blank space, a hole in the map, where the wind doesn't blow and the birds don't fly. The man from Taured wasn't a traveler. He was a warning. He was the first leak in a dam that has finally burst our reality. Our history, our very memories, are being overwritten by the other side. The Great War of 1912 is becoming our truth. The black towers of Arasaka's vision are rising in the distance, shadowed by a sun that feels cold. Do you remember your childhood? Are you sure? Check your passport. Check your birth certificate. Look at the names of the cities on your wall. Are they the same as they were yesterday? Or has the ink shifted? Has the Andorra on your map started to look like Taured? The transition is silent. It is painless. And it is absolute. We are not being conquered by an army. We are being replaced by a ghost. Every person who vanished over the last 70 years. Every glitch in the system. They were just pieces of the puzzle being moved into place. And now, the puzzle is complete. I am looking out the window as I write this. The streetlights are flickering in a pattern I don't understand. The people below are walking with a strange rhythmic gait, their eyes hollow, their suits too sharp. They are here. The man in the wool suit is standing at the end of my hallway. He isn't running anymore. He is smiling. He has found his home, because he brought it with him. He is reaching out his hand, the same long gray fingers from the Project Mirror disaster. He wants me to join him. He wants you to join him, because in the new world, there is no room for the old. Don't bother screaming. The sound won't travel. Don't bother running. There is nowhere left that isn't them. The man who didn't exist was actually the only one who was real. We were the shadows. We were the mistake. And now, we are being deleted. Goodbye. 1954. Goodbye, Arling Arlo. Welcome to Taured. The year was 1726, and a heavy silence fell over Raynham Hall. A young woman named Dorothy Walpole lived within these walls, but she wasn't living in luxury. No, she was a prisoner. Her husband, Lord Townsend, was a man of cold, calculated cruelty. He suspected her of a secret affair. His revenge? It was worse than death. He locked her in a room and threw away the key. Imagine it. No sunlight, no escape, just the sound of her own heartbeat. Slowing down, she died in that room, alone. But did her soul leave? Not even close. Years later, a guest was walking the grand staircase. The air turned freezing. A woman appeared, gliding down the steps. She wore a dress of brown silk, but her face, oh, her face was a nightmare. Where her eyes should have been, there were only empty holes. The guest screamed, but the figure didn't stop. She moved like smoke, passing through the very air itself. They called her the Brown Lady, but even a king could not escape her reach. King George IV came to visit, thinking he was safe. He was wrong. In the middle of the night, he woke up. He saw her, standing at the foot of his bed, her hollow sockets staring directly into his soul. The king fled the house before sunrise. He vowed never to return. But the Brown Lady, she is still there, waiting on those stairs. Are you brave enough to climb them? Probably not. The king fled in terror, but the legend was only beginning. Raynham Hall was no longer a home. It was a tomb for over a century. The Brown Lady remained a shadow in the corner of your eye. Then came the year 1835. A man named Colonel Loftus was visiting for the holidays. A night of celebration. Right. WRONG. He was walking to his room. Late at night, the candles were flickering, almost as if they were afraid. He reached the top of the grand staircase, and there she was, a woman, draped in brown silk. Loftus froze. He watched her, waiting for a movement, but she just stood there, silent as the grave. He tried to follow her, but she vanished into thin air, disappeared. Loftus was a man of logic, a man of war. He didn't believe in ghosts. Not yet. He returned a week later, determined to find the truth. And he found it. This time, he saw her face clearly. The woman turned and stared directly at him. Her eyes were gone, leaving behind nothing but darkness. 2 black pits, where a soul should be. The colonel didn't move. He couldn't move. He was paralyzed with fear. The next morning, he left. He didn't say a word. He just packed his bags and ran. But what was she looking for? Why did she keep returning to those stairs? The servants began to whisper. They said she wasn't just haunting the hall. She was searching, looking for the children she was never allowed to see. Or perhaps, looking for the husband who buried her alive. The air in Raynham Hall grew heavy. People started hearing footsteps where no one was there. Doors would lock from the inside. Was the Brown Lady getting angry? Or was she just getting started? The most terrifying moment was yet to come. A moment that would change history and capture the impossible on film. The mystery of Raynham Hall was about to be captured, not by a king or a colonel, but by a camera. September 19th, 1936. Two men from Country Life magazine entered the hall. They were there to take photos of the grand staircase. Just a routine job, right? WRONG. Captain Provand and his assistant, Endra Shira, set up their heavy equipment. The air was thick with dust and a strange, heavy coldness. Endra Shira looked up at the stairs. His heart almost stopped. A misty shape was descending. It wasn't human. It was a pale, glowing figure. Shira shouted at the captain, "Fire the flash." "No." The flash went off. A blinding light cutting through the gloom. The figure was gone. Provan didn't see it. He thought his assistant was crazy, or just tired. He laughed. There was nothing there, Shira. But when they developed the film, the laughter died. The image was clear. A woman in a long, flowing dress, walking down the stairs. Her face was a blur of light, but her presence was undeniable. It was the Brown Lady, the most famous ghost photo in history. Critics tried to debunk it. They said it was a fake, a trick of the light, or a double exposure. But they couldn't explain the feeling that something was wrong with that image. Is she still there, trapped in a loop of time? Some say she only appears to those who are about to die, a messenger of the END. The stairs are still there, waiting for the next step. And the Brown Lady, she is still waiting. But what happens when she stops waiting and starts coming for you? The mystery did not end with a photograph. No, it only grew darker after the camera captured her. The Brown Lady of Raynham Hall became a global sensation. Thousands wanted to see her. But the hall, it grew silent. The family who lived there, they stopped talking. They locked the doors and pulled the curtains shut. Why the sudden secrecy? What were they hiding? Some say the ghost grew angry. Being caught on film was an insult to her eternal rest. The sightings became more violent. Objects flying across rooms, screams echoing through the night, and the smell of rotting flowers filling the grand staircase. Investigators tried to return. They brought modern equipment, thermal cameras, and recorders. They sat in the dark, waiting for a whisper, but they found nothing. Had she finally found peace? Or was she just hiding? Wait, there is a story, whispered by the local villagers. They say that on the anniversary of her death, the staircase becomes a portal. If you stand at the bottom and look up, you won't see a ghost. Delhi, a city of millions. But some places are meant to stay empty. Deep in the heart of Rohini, there is a stream that doesn't just flow, it hunts, they call it. Kuni Nadi, the river of blood. The water looks still, almost peaceful. But don't let the silence fool you. Locals say the water has a mind of its own. Have you ever felt a hand reaching from the depths, grabbing your reflection? Most people don't live to tell that part. It starts with a whisper, a soft, chilling cry, drifting through the trees as the sun goes down. Is it the wind? No, it's the sound of the lost, those who touch the surface and were pulled into the dark. They say if you stand on that old stone bridge and look too closely, the river looks back. It doesn't want your prayers. It wants your soul. Once you hear the screaming, it's already too late. The water is cold, dark, deadly. And tonight, the river is hungry. Again. The water. It doesn't just sit there. It watches. Imagine walking along the bank, the air getting heavy, cold. They say the first sign is the smell rotting wood, and something else. Something old, like a grave that's been opened. You think you're alone? Think again. A splash. Ripples moving against the current. Something is swimming, but it's not a fish. It's a shadow, a pale, white hand, breaking the surface, reaching, searching. Did you hear that? A sob. A woman's voice, calling from the reeds. Help me, ... single quotes, she whispers. But if you step closer, the voice, it changes. It becomes a hiss. The ground beneath your feet. It's soft like mud, ... or flesh. You try to run, but your legs feel like lead. Why can't you move? Because the river, it has your scent now. Every step you take, the water follows, creeping up the bank. Silently, it wants to pull you into the deep, where the sun never reaches, where the screaming never stops. Is that a face? Under the waves? Yes, and it looks just like yours. The bridge, that old crumbling stone bridge. It feels like a gateway to somewhere. Wrong, people say. If you cross it after midnight, the air turns to ice. Can you feel it? The sudden, heavy silence. No crickets. No city noise. Just the sound of your own heart, beating like a drum. Then, the scratching, like fingernails on stone, coming from under the bridge. You look down, but there is only blackness, or is there? Two pale eyes, staring back from the muck. The locals tell stories of the touch of the dead. If a single drop of that water hits your skin, it's a death sentence. You feel a tug, a pull, a force that is stronger than you. Why is the water turning red? Is it the moon? No, it's the history. The countless bodies that never came back up. The screaming starts again, but this time, it's closer, right behind your ear. A cold breath against your neck. You want to scream, but your voice is gone. The river, it's not just water anymore. It's a mouth, and it's wide open, waiting for its next sacrifice. The trap is set. And the river, it's closing in. You can feel the moisture in the air, in your lungs. Every breath feels like drowning. Look at the water. It's not flowing anymore. It's vibrating. A low, deep hum that rattles your bones. The shadows on the bank, they aren't trees. They are the watchers, the ones who stayed far too long. Why are they pointing at you? Because you're the guest of honor tonight. The river doesn't just want to touch. It wants everything. The surface of the water. It starts to bubble like it's boiling. But it's not heat. It's anger. Hundreds of years of agony rise into the top. Do you see that figure? Standing right in the middle of the stream. Pale, tattered, wet. It's reaching out. Not to save you, but to drag you down to the bottom, where the mud is made of secrets. One step. That's all it takes. The ground, it disappears. The cold, it's like shattering glass. You try to scream, but the water, it fills your mouth. It tastes like metal, like blood. The screaming, it stops. The crying, it fades. The city of Delhi goes on, but the Rohini stream, it flows silently. Once more, until the next curious soul arrives. Will it be you? Maybe.